listen, before we got on the podcast, you mentioned something interesting that some people might find sexist, but I think we're just trying to come from a self-honest place. And I'm gonna give you the floor on this in a minute so I could shape it. You said it's very interesting that when college women's basketball is on, it's intriguing, it's electrifying, it's engaging, and the WNBA is on, it's not as interesting. And I was like, wow, you know what? There's a women's indoor pro league for volleyball, right? And what am I watching? I'm watching Big Ten. I'm watching Minnesota. One of my favorite coaches there, Hugh McCutcheon. Texas has been doing that thing for a long time. I live in California, so I could just turn on Pac Channel and get it whenever I want. But I want to give you the floor because we're not. I'm speaking for both of us when I say we're not coming from a sexist place here. It's just what we find electric and what and you know what I'm saying, and what intrigues us. Your thoughts?
And I know people are going to say, maybe it's a recency bias because we're in the flow of, March. And so like everybody's paying attention. But I've been a sports guy. I've been a sports writer since I was 14 years old. So I've been watching sports of, girl sports for a long time from the high school, college, and pro level. And I find that when I'm watching college girl sports, it's there's a flow that comes with it. I mean, it's obviously when you take it from the men's side, obviously the game at the college level, there's a lot more plays ran, less of what we would call hero ball. But you could see the athleticism difference between men's college basketball and the pros. Like it's like night and day. But like there's some ladies in college right now who are making some passes that I don't really see in a WNBA game. Like I'm talking like I saw the ball movement. I saw them pushing the ball up the court. I saw some of the shot selections, and I was just like, man, it just seemed like the overall game just had a better flow, and it just seemed like there was a connection
Mhm.
between the teammates that just made for a better overall product. And again, I mean, I have nothing to get. You're a pro. Hey, bless you. You made it to the pros, which means you're the best of the best of the
Yes.
best from
Yeah,
the
yeah, you're
best.
not waiting tables at night.
No, no, no. You don't make what the men make, but you're not broke either. But at the same time, though, like it just seemed like the college game just had an energy and a vibe to it that I just don't get from pros. And I say that obviously from the women's side, but I feel that way about some guys sports too.
Mhm.
But it felt like the talent level was closer on par between college and pros than I see on the men's side. That's just something that I'm seeing as someone who's done the recruiting
Mhm.
analyst work from the football standpoint. When I see college football,
Mhm.
like I'm like, okay, these guys are awesome. And you see pros, and you're just like, yeah, I can see where there's a big line,
Mhm.
especially on the O lines and D lines, where there's a huge difference. But at the same time, like there's an energy and a flow that I just noticed because I don't catch a lot of WNBA games, but I catch a substantial amount of them, enough to know where I can see the difference as an analyst, and my eye is there, and it's like, am I paying attention to what I'm seeing? And absolutely I am. And I'm always looking for the play behind the play when it comes to watching sports of any kind.
I think that you're on to something, and I think I'd like to take that a step further. I also mentioned before the podcast, there are certain sports at the professional level that are more coach driven, and there are certain sports at the professional level that are driven more by the players. And there is a correlation there. Like if you look at the NFL, that's more coach run. Than player driven, right? Basketball, if there's a choice between a coach and a player that's got to go, the coach is going to go. Football, a little bit different. I mean, look, you got your untouchables, you got your Popoviches, and you got your guys like that. We get that, but
Yeah.
and I think the reasoning behind that is I really think when on a college level, it allows just the coach to be the artist, to be the painters. They have a bunch of girls who want to be there. There's not a free agency thing. There's not someone that they had to draft that they're stuck with, right? Particularly Division One. Division Three. Sometimes you get a good player, and it's like, man, I want to win. I take it, whatever. But I think it has a lot to do with the players who want to be there, the coaches who are allowed to be an artist, because the players have to do what the coaches say, or they're benched. That generates this. it's this unexplainable force, right? We saw it in the WNBA. I'm not the WNBA, the NCAA Women's College Volleyball, basketball. Never mind the finals. Even the semifinal games were engaging, right? The finals. Look, the finals. We can establish as a given. Agreed, right? 9.9 million views, which was more than the 2021 NBA Finals, which was more than any Stanley Cup final since 1973. So it shattered a lot. I mean, we're talking women's college basketball that shattered these records. So your thoughts on maybe the coach? We're watching the movie, but because we got good directors in the form of the athletic coaches.
Yeah, and I think this year I think we just sort of caught lightning in a bottle, and it's really always been there. Like
Mm-hmm.
people say nobody supports women's sports. I was like that's not true. I've always a lot of people, and a lot of men watch women's sports. That's just we're typically more sports driven, just by the numbers, and we watch that. I think we just caught lightning in a bottle with that. A lot of the better teams made it to the Final Four, made it to the Elite Eight on the women's side, where there were some blue bloods, where there were some disappointments on the men's side, like some people who were not scripted, some people who were slated to get there, who were predicted to be there, didn't end up making it. And so it's like, it still was an exciting game. There was a great finish in the Final Four to send San Diego State into the game. But
Man,
when you
yeah.
start looking at this Final Four matchup, you got LSU powerhouse. I remember when Kim Mulkey was Kim Mulkey Robertson, and she was leading Baylor
Mm.
back in the day. And so you have that powerhouse team. You had South Carolina in the Final Four. Then you have this Iowa team that's just like you got National Player of the Year on the court.
Mm-hmm.
All these young ladies, many of them are going to play in the WNBA, and it was the perfect closing of the season for them. I
Right.
think that's why I got the views. And these a lot of these players, these young ladies coming up, like they're aggressive, they play well, they're likable, they became fan favorites like within a month.
Yeah.
And I think that all of that came together to create a great product at the end of the road. And two hardcore teams battling it out. LSU comes out on
Wasn't
top,
it
gets the
great?
title. It was crazy. It was theater.
you, you know, like Cuba Gooding Jr. says, you know.
Hey man.
Well, before I go into the next thing, I want to say something really cool about LSU. There's nothing in the world like a state university that's state sponsored and state driven, and the constituents who vote these elected officials who support these people are like, wow, this is where I want to spend my tax dollars. I bring your attention to the football team, right? A couple of years ago, national championship in one of the most competitive divisions in all of college football, right? The SEC, right? There's no easy way. There's no easy path. You got to go through Alabama, Auburn, and God knows who else, right? So, and now you got LSU right now for the women's basketball. They're gonna make a trip to the White House, and only them. We'll get into that in a minute. Um, Women's beach volleyball. I want to tell you a little bit about my wheelhouse. There was a team that graduated in 2021. They were like beach volleyball comes in 5 pairs, 5 teams of doubles. The pair won. Kristen Nuss and Taryn Cloth were a perfect 37-0 at LSU. And then on the pro scene, they played some regional tournaments. Won 9 out of 10 regional tournaments. Their first AVP tournament in Atlanta, went to the qualifier, had to qualify right to the main draw. Qualified, main draw, won. Their first international tournament, flew to Australia with no points, got the last spot in the qualifier, main draw, won. I mean this, and these girls are at LSU. And the lieutenant governor said that they're fully sponsored. So there are a lot of people like for basketball or for certain people, like if you want to be a pro, you got to train with the best. So a lot of people move. So a lot of people move to California to train for beach volleyball. It's almost like a given. Not these two. These two stayed in the state of Louisiana. The lieutenant governor called them, said, you're fully sponsored. The state-of-the-art facilities are there. They got a great coach from Texas. His name is Hamilton, Drew Hamilton. And so just a cool sample size of just the 3 major sports in college and in the NCAA, and LSU is just bossing it. So I want to get somewhere with this. I'm going to have a little fun. So Caitlyn gave the crowd a little sauce in the semifinals. She got it back by Angel Reese. How you feel about that? Look,
I mean,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I mean, look, personally as a coach, maybe you feel different. Maybe we got that little Coach Carter thing, like since when is winning not enough? But let's talk about that on different levels. But I want to give you the floor because I could talk all day about this.
I'm man. I don't really see a lot, man. When ballers are in the arena, I'm not gonna say all bets are off, but it's like, I've never been one who's just like, the real fly, let's stun on everybody because you're already dominant. But at
Mhm.
the same time, it's like, you know, you dish, you take, and most people who do that typically can take. You know, the the
Caitlyn
the
did.
the
She took
the
it.
the ultimate
Yeah.
trash talkers love for you to say it back. I mean, we look back at when Kobe used to bark at people, and he used to bark at people to say, "Are you going to say something back to me?" So let's kind of get over the sensitivities or whatever. Now, I don't promote just downright just disrespect and just
Showing people up. Yeah.
nastiness and just really just overly showing someone up and like stomping them to the ground when they're down. But if there's going to be a little bit of competitive, you know, babble, trash talk, or whatever, I don't have an issue with that, man. I never was one of those kind of guys, but I played ball with them and I was cool with them. And it's just like, my only thing is own what you do. Meaning, if you get popped in the mouth and your teeth gets knocked out, like just be like, yeah, you got it. Like, don't try to be salty with it.
Right.
You've been delivering all of these blows and talking all of
Hmm.
this noise. Like, hold it. Hold the L. Hold the trash talk.
Hmm.
Hold yourself accountable for the fact
Yes.
that you are that. That's the only thing I have is just
Let me ask you something.
lean into what you are.
Right. Let me ask you something though. Do you? I feel like Caitlyn is the only one that was thick skinned about that. I thought the media got a little soft as cotton about it. Not even the media. You got people like you have people that are not in mainstream media for sports, like Keith Olbermann. I mean, sometimes he's in sports. Saying all this ridiculous stuff, talking about that was trashy, that's this and that. But I feel like to me, from my observation, I felt like the only person that was like, "Hey, I could dish it, I could take it," was Caitlyn. If you look at the post press conference, she was like, "Nah, hey, she did her thing." You know what? And you know what? And she was okay with that. And they actually had some pleasant words when they shook hands at the end. And and I think the reason why people were hypersensitive and everybody's ears are so brittle, right, was because there's been a historical pattern of white exceptionalism when it comes to talking trash and this and that. But before I explore that, I want to say the same thing as you. I personally, I have that Coach Carter mentality. Since when is winning not enough, right? You got to show somebody up too. You know what I mean? So on my personal note, just like you speaking as a former elite athlete, I played in Germany, Darmstadt, Germany, as an outside hitter. I share my personal sentiment, but there was this thing where everybody's like, "Oh, it's race baiting, and I don't think it was race baiting. I think just people have a knee-jerk reaction because of a historical pattern of guys like Philip Rivers who talk to people all the time, and Aaron Rodgers go talking about "I own you," but when Terrell Owens says "I love me some me," he's a locker room cancer. So I thought they missed the ball. It's just my opinion. I'm giving the floor back to you. I thought they missed the ball on this in terms of race or whatever and this and that. But I think it came from a place, a knee jerk reaction place that had a historical pattern of something that looks similar to this. But I don't agree. I don't think that.
The media is always about polarities.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Then some.
black, white, rich, poor,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, uh, uh, America versus the world. It's always it can't just ever be like it's just us two in a room and I don't really care. Like, I get knocked a lot by people who look like me and say like, why don't you care about race? I was like, because it's just irrelevant to me. It's relevant and it's irrelevant to me. Right? To me, I don't wake up wondering what somebody who doesn't look like me thinks about me. I just don't. Right? And people always, laugh at me because it's like, man, I got my brothers at the church. It's like, there's 3 white guys over there. It's like, I know, they're my brothers.
Man,
Like, so miss me with all that.
light skinned
Like
brother. Just a light skinned
they're my brothers. I'm like, can't you
brother.
can't you see our mother bore both of us? Can't you tell? Like, because and as soon as I saw that, I was like, I know they're going to try to spin that because there's money in division, man. It
Right.
just is. There's money in putting people at people's throats, red
Yeah.
versus blue, white versus black, you know, Pick your polarities.
I agree.
Whether it's sexual, whether it's political, whether it's spiritual, it doesn't matter. They wanted to play that up, and I knew that because it's like clockwork, because they're always ready for that, because they're always looking for that.
And the talking
like,
points are identical, aren't they? It's like the
the
talking points are hot 97 rhyme ready. I agree with you. Yep.
Well, of course. It's like you can always look at something and say, I know what they're going to do with this. They're going to say it's this, like, because
that's true.
But you know what? To be fair, I mean, if you're a race hustler or you pimp politically, of course you're going to be looking for it. Otherwise, you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Right? Why do you all that dividing between that? Like, if you just be like, you know what? I wake up, I do my thing. Yeah. I'm not worried about any other race. You know, I align with people who align with me from a value standpoint, not skin color. Right. From a spiritual religious standpoint, not skin color.
Right.
I'm not on some kind of class system. I'm on a mindset issue here.
I agree.
Right. So I don't care about all your other little nuances or whatever. It's like, hey, I can even do business with you, and I may not even really like you that much. Right. But can we get together and do something and go build this and go do something great and amazing? And you go home and like, hey, we split our bag and we go our separate ways.
It's kind of liberating, isn't it?
Well, I don't obsess over division.
Right.
Like, again, my thing is more of a values principle system, right? I don't aside anything else I'm worried about. Amen. It's a values principle system. Yeah. I'm not the race of a person, like that doesn't even come into effect with me, because that's one of the things that they use to be able to monetize us, because they want to be like, hey, doesn't that bother you? Doesn't that bother you? Not really.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. It's just two lions going after each other, and somebody's going to win. And the only thing you say is, you got it.
You know what the crazy thing is? Sorry to interrupt. The crazy thing is, like, I wasn't hooked on it. I didn't bite. But I knew if I listened long enough, they were going to come up with something that was going to make me bite. Right? For example, like Jill wanted to invite both teams to the White House. And I had my friend ask me, she's like, let me ask you something. If Iowa won, would have been an idea to invite Iowa and LSU to the White House? And I was like, ooh, I don't think so. If the situation were reversed, would she invite both teams? And I'm like, I can't believe I got sucked into that because of that question. And that was the point you were trying to make. If you don't drown the noise, it's going to drown you. I also think your attitude and your mentality allows you to be just liberated and free of that. You're in your 40s, but you look like you're 28. You know what I'm saying? And I think you really save years on your life from that. You really do, right? You know me, I'm 53, and I think I look all right. I look like a creepy 35, but but the cool thing is, the thing I liked what you said. You have a spiritual freedom. From that, there's a spiritual sense and a sense of community and common sense that frees you from that. For me, my critical thinking skills frees me from that. You just mentioned something before about like there's someone you might not like, but there's someone that you might want to work with that benefits maybe you and him and maybe other people as a collective whole to make a world a better place, right? And sometimes, the old saying is we make peace with our enemies. That's the reason why there's a saying. That's a saying, because making peace with your friends is not like a thing. You're right. So talk to me a little bit about drowning out the noise like this, and I just introduced it in the podcast, and I guess I guess what I'm trying to say is kind of send a message to some of our followers. We both got a lot of followers. How this approach allows other people to not live rent free in your head, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I sense where you're going, and it's funny you said make peace with your enemies. Actually, to take it deeper, you're supposed to love your enemies. In fact, give them the shirt off your back.
Yep.
According to my spiritual beliefs, it's like, you're supposed to love them. Like, Father, forgive them. They know not what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying that that's easy to do, because if somebody aggresses against me, it's like, wait a minute, you want me to forgive that dude? Okay. Let me go on my secret spot. Let me talk to you again and see if we can work something else out. But no, we are called to something higher. And I think the way you get the whole, someone out of your head or whatever is just, just take a step back. You talked about like, oh, we're going to invite both teams or whatever. And that's because, and I'm sure we'll get on this later, but that's the whole everyone's a winner. And to be fair, I think if it went the other way, it could have easily went that way as well. Why? Because it's just like, oh, well, you got, again, the two sides, oppressed, oppressors. And, we already know where, certain people in politics, where they stand on certain issues.
Right.
That's the reason why it was said in the first place. I mean, we can skirt around that concept all we want, but that's where it is. Mm-hmm. And when you, and what it's done, it's really weakened our country. Like, we got this sort of loser, just somebody help me, everyone gets pizza, ice cream party mentality that's just a joke. Like, no, you lost, you go home and hold your L properly. Like, you need to hold that. Mm-hmm. And especially for the fellas, man, especially for us. Like, we don't come in the game fully made. We become. And we become through trial and error, through getting, kill the man with the ball, through falling out of trees, through scuffing our knee up, getting bit by every organism known to man in the grass. That's how we grow up. And we're trial by fire. We're forged. That's how the metal is forged. And so when you get to the point where you're thinking on those mindsets and you're just like, okay, I need to be the best version of me so that I could serve the greatest number of people. Right? Because, see, a lot of people, when people live rent free in your head, because you actually think this life you have is about you. You think that the whole game is about you, and it's not. Like, what are you doing to make the game around you? Like, what do I say? Being a team player. How are you making the game around you better? How are you making your home better? How are you making your community better? Your schools, your churches, your organizations. What are you contributing to make life better for others? And when we all have that collective understanding, and I'm not talking about some kumbaya, everybody gets an equal ration of food. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about everybody going out there and killing a goat, killing a bear, killing a buffalo, and bringing some meat home, and then you split it with your people.
Yes, and make a coat, and make a coat, and make a coat, make a coat.
Make a coat, maybe, get a little tent going, maybe put something on my head, cover my head up. You're out there in New York, it's kind of cold. So
no, I'm in California now, but go ahead.
So you got good weather now. That's good. And put something on your head, cover your head up to make sure, keep yourself warm or whatever. But when you have a purpose and you're doing what you're doing in life, and you know that you're serving and doing great things, I don't have time to worry about not only who doesn't like me, but who doesn't rock with me, who's not in my circle, who has some sort of issue. I just don't have time to think about, man, I wonder if this organization has a problem with people who look like me. I don't care.
Yeah.
I could care less.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. Like, when people say, hey, I go to a church down here, and people ask me, is it a black church? No, it's a church.
There you go.
It's a church with every nationality and every language known to man.
But I think there's a new. But I got to stop you there. There's a nuance thing though when it comes to black church and white church. Okay, like is it a Catholic church where they're singing hymnals, or is it a place where they're doing backflips up the aisle, speaking in tongues and this and that? But I think you're right.
But that's more of the religion of what their church philosophy is.
Boom.
Right?
Yeah,
you're talking about
that's
Pentecostal, Methodist, Lutheran, non-denominational, Mormons, 7-day Adventists. You're talking about all, like, there's a different flow to all of those. And yes, I've been to some churches where,
where the spirit's moving, huh?
Well, I've been to some funerals where it was a full turn up.
Wow.
Right? Like, it just full. Yes, I've been to a funeral where I was just like, are we still at there is somebody who we need to go bury. Have we forgotten she's there? Because there's sometimes where I've been places like that. So I guess you could say that. But I mean, there's if you want to talk about the difference between black and white, I've been to some white churches where they turn up too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you from the South too,
it's
so
just whatever the pastor, however the pastor leads it, whatever. And I'm just more so going on the idea that, like, I go there and I feel like if the spirit is leading me, I'm not doing a census on how many people of every nationality is in there and however many countries are represented in here. Like, I'm not looking for, let me do my diversity checklist when I go to a church. No.
Well,
I'm going there because of
I do, but it's for completely different reasons.
okay.
I'll give you an example. I posted a picture on a social network of one of the first college teams I ever coached, New York City Technical College. I had to build that NCAA program off the ground, right? So I did a checklist, right, of all the players standing next to me, like a team picture. It was
Hmm.
like, boom, Venezuela, that guy Trinidad, that dude Jamaica, that dude Brazil, that dude Poland, right? So for me, I always some people say they don't recognize race, but it's for all the noble reasons you're talking about, and those definitely deserve the respect because that allows you to just get more done and embrace the whole concept of bring new meaning to the term unity. But for me, I guess it's because I'm mixed. My mom's black, my dad's white, so I'm not. I just think for me, if I recognize diversity, then we have this function where we can all laugh together. Where you know what I'm saying? We're brittle, some jokes that are not necessarily tasteless or whatever. Like Dave Chappelle, I remember once said, he says, "I'm not doing any more transgender jokes until we can all laugh together." Right? He went scorched earth on that last one, but he kind of got it, and he just wanted everybody else to get it. But I love where you're coming from on this. And when you were talking about this, and I'm gonna give you the floor back, I was thinking this movie Hustle and Flow, Terrence Howard,
Hmm.
where the
Okay.
DJ, remember the DJ was white, and he's like, "Come here for a second, let me, yeah, hey, man, let me holler at you, man." He said, "He's white, right?" And he said, "No, he's a light skinned brother." It was Anderson, I forgot his name, Greg Anderson. He said, "No, he's a light skinned brother." So when you were talking about that, that's all I could think about, and I was like, "God damn, we're the same, brother." Now I want to steer the ship on if we can but if you something you want to say about this, you could definitely say this. But I wanted to steer the ship about what you were talking about, the value of hard work. Like the people who are on these projects and putting in the work and not caring about what people think because the only thing they can think about is the end result. And sometimes when you finish this work of art, whether you're building something or whether you're coaching a team and you see the finished product, all you can do is be wowed at what it is. And at that time, you're a prisoner of the moment, right? You're not thinking about what other people think. My wheelhouse, volleyball. We're talking about women's volleyball. They won the gold. Karch Karai, who was the coach. I've never. We were like, dude, the robot feels because this guy was a robot. I mean, cold, just a cold fish, and he started crying, and he just kept saying, "They did it, not we, I did it, not we did it. They did it, they did it." And he was crying like how some kids when they cry, you can't understand what they say. Hey, what's wrong? Hey, ice cream. So I wanted you to talk to me about the value of hard work and why people like that don't pay attention to to outside forces. Maybe is it because they ain't got time for that? I mean that might be one of the many reasons, but I'm going to give you the floor about that because I think this is more within your wheelhouse to talk about. I'm qualified, but you are definitely qualified.
Yeah, once someone comes up with a plan, whatever it is you're trying to build, a company, a family, career, a philosophy, a program, a product. I mean, like you're very narrow-minded on like 80% of my day is going to be consumed with this. And even the other 20 is going to be in support of this, you know, whether it's, coming home to a family, coming home to your kids or whatever. And it's like, not that the percentage is less for them, but it's like your working hours is very singular focus. And so you just don't have time for nonsense and conversations that aren't going to go to the bottom line, which is completing this task. And when you get to the point where you're doing life at that level, you just don't have time for distractions. You stop going to places maybe you went before because, I'm trying to build an iPhone, and I don't have time to, do the Friday happy hour thing any longer. I don't have time to, have these useless conversations on the phone with certain people who, everybody has that person who's just like, yeah, I was bored, so I called you. And it's just like, wow, that's not respectful at all, is it? I'm the person you call when you're bored. Like, well, what are we doing here? And so, um, hard work is well, it's nature. It's what it is. I mean, you're talking about the seed to a plant, right? You're talking about, the gestation period. You're talking about the caterpillar to a butterfly. All that is hard work. It's pain. It's death, right? And I think, like, when we think about this on a bigger sense, for you to grow into whatever this is you're working for, The old limited you needs to die. Your old ways, your old mindset, the way you used to operate. I mean, that's what growth is about. I would hope somebody at 43 is not thinking like they were when they were 17. I hope not.
Good
Now we
Lord.
do know we all have friends who do, and we know how well they're doing or how well they're not doing right now. But that's the understanding, is that no one's going to do the work for you. Um, you have to be the example. You have to be the one. You have to be the leader, and you have to start by leading your own life. And there is nothing to be accomplished without some level of hard work. There's no way to get around it. Whether you're talking about a sports team, whether you're talking about a corporation, whether you're talking about a nonprofit, whether you're talking about teaching school, anything, any trade, anything where there's levels. And by the way, there's always levels. There's no, everyone gets the same amount. That's never existed in human history, and it never will.
Right.
I don't care how many ways you try to work this. There's always got to be a way where somebody can strive for more.
Right.
And we want that.
Yeah.
Right. This whole, we need to even the playing field. There's no such thing as an even playing field. Like I always say, there's no such thing as equality.
Right.
Because there's not.
No, life's not fair. Like you just said.
Like the great Thomas Sowell said, you're not even equal to yourself yesterday. So how's there equality?
Okay.
If you have a family of 3 or 4, all the kids don't get equal treatment. Parents might be like, yeah, I'll treat them all equally. No, you don't. Because it's impossible. You can't. Because each of them have their own special needs.
Right.
Some of them might need more attention than others. There is no equality in this world.
Right.
None, zero, nada. Everything is based on a moment by moment basis, and you put intentions together. But at the end of the day, no one's going to end up in the same place with the same resources, with the same skills, nor does everybody have the same interest. The reason why you can never put it to a situation where everybody ends up crossing the finish line at the same time, because everybody doesn't want the same thing.
True.
You may be willing to wake up at 5 o'clock every morning for your goal. The dude up the street might not want to wake up until 9. You have 4 hours extra to get your task, your things done that he doesn't. Well, 9 times out of 10, the end result of the two of you is going to be different. Not my opinion. That's just the way the game works.
Yeah.
And so when we understand that level, hard work is different for all of us.
I agree.
So you find your way in that, and just know you get back what you put in, right? Don't be looking at the next guy, the guy next door, pocket watching him, wondering why his car looks better than yours. If anything, if you have a problem with that, why don't you go say, hey, what are you working on? What mindset are you operating with? What books are you reading? What's your morning routine? How did you accomplish such things? Don't be a hater. Go over there and be like, hey,
you
got a couple pointers you can shoot over my way. I'd like to be better in life.
You also stumbled onto something more significant, because when you said there are levels to this on so many scales, the value of hard work and dealing with wins and losses is very, very important. But before we get to that, I just want to make a mental note. When I moved to California, I moved here with 17 years of coaching experience. I was already a former player and this and that. But I knew, because it's cliquish out here, no one knew me, I had to start over, right? So I hit the ground running so fast. I had people ask me, how did you do it? You're this guy from New York. There are people that have been in California for 20 years and not where you are now. And I said, one, and you said this in a previous podcast, one, life's not fair. Right? Sometimes you got to run 150 yards, 150 meters for the 100-meter dash, but that going, you're just going to train harder and run faster. Because at the end of the day, like Bill Parr says, you are what your record says you are. Did you do it or did you not? Right? Oh, I almost did it, or I didn't do it because of this. I didn't do it because of that. Right? That's not inspiring. No one wants to hear that. But the second most important thing is, if you don't take that fact, that historical fact that life's not fair, if you don't take that fact and pontificate how it's unfair, if you just put your nose in the work, there's a huge reward at the end of that, right? And that's what I tell my friends while I was out here. I said I knew it wasn't fair, but if I didn't take that fact kicking and screaming, right? Because nobody wants to work with that person either, right? But I didn't take that fact kicking and screaming, and I was rewarded for that. I'm actually in a pretty good place here. I'm almost in the catbird seat. But we were talking about different levels to this that you mentioned in your diatribe of certain the certain human conditions, I'll just say. And I want to phrase it like this. For kids, the first time that most kids, or a lot of kids, the first time they ever deal with a loss isn't a sporting event. You know what I'm saying, right? Deal with a personal loss, is or something that they wanted. So, talk to me a little bit about. Cause maybe I'm trying to segue into participation trophies and how we hate them, but talk to me a little bit about the different levels, because you recently were working with kids. You're like, wow, this is a little young. This isn't the age group I thought I was going to be working with. I remember you were telling that story. But talk to me about the other levels. We can talk about the high level and professional level and college level ad nauseum. Talk to me about building these personalities and building and how this helps build the character and the motivation of young minds. I don't know how to ask a question to save my life, but I think you get what I'm saying.
You're good. And I'm on record saying this: every young kid, especially the males, need to be in competitive sports. Period.
Yeah. Or some discipline, right? Maybe jiu-jitsu class or something. Maybe somewhere where they have to go somewhere and respect other people.
Something competitive, something where there's a clear winner and a clear loser.
Boom.
Like, we need that, right? I'm not talking about we're just doing it for a hobby. No, I want something where you can get an L. I want a loss to be in the cards. And obviously people are like, well, my kid's not very athletic. Keep him in there until you absolutely can't keep him in there any longer, because sports is bigger than just that part of it. You got teamwork, responsibility, accountability, and there's a level to where if you don't, you're accountable to other young men or other young girls, right? Like, you're part of a team dynamic, meaning you're a puzzle piece in the full picture. You not being there, or you not contributing, you not giving your all, it hurts other people. And so now there's a relationship between you and those people. It's just like, hey, I thought you had my back. Like, and so now it builds a culture around you. And the thing is that you have to, the character building that comes with, especially you got team sports and you have individual sports. And if you have the opportunity, put them in both. So your team sports obviously is your baseball, football, basketball, sports like that.
Certainly indoor
Soccer,
volleyball. Yeah.
Volleyball, where there's a whole team dynamic, meaning all the parts are needed to make this work. And in these other sports, you're part of a team, but it's still individual. Track, wrestling, tennis, swimming, those types of sports. Those sports build a ton of character, because I love those sports because you can't blame somebody else for your failure. Yep. It's you in that lane. You're the only one there. In wrestling, you're the one in the ring. You're by yourself. In the pool, you're the one in that lane. You can't.
Any sport where there's not a bench, right?
You know what? I'm going to use that one.
Because beach volleyball, right? Our motto is there's no bench on the beach. I mean, doubles is not singles, but the whole time you're listing off these single sports. I'm like, I'd love to put doubles in there, volleyball, but it doesn't count because it's doubles. But there's the same philosophy. No bench on the beach. You can't sub them out. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And really, it's more so the idea, like, in basketball, you can be like, oh, y'all don't pass me the ball enough. In football, it's like, well, you missed the block. And baseball, you didn't scoop up and make the double play like we needed, and all those different things like that. In wrestling, it's you and someone else.
Wow. Jiu-jitsu, yeah.
All spotlight is on you. In track, you're in that lane. Where did you cross the finish line? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, or not placing, right? In swimming, boom, you jump in that water. You can't be like, Kaylee didn't. No. It's a one-on-one race. It's you and 7 people, 9 people, whatever, however many lanes are there. You have to deal with that. And so that builds a character in you that you just can't learn at home without it. And so, like somebody say, you might find out your kid's just not athletic. Like, he's like 2 left feet. She's kind of clunky or whatever.
And ugly shoes.
But keep them in as long as you can for the lessons that come with it. Maybe they don't get on the field too much, but they're a good locker room person and they learn the idea of teamwork and being accountable to somebody else, to being a servant leader, to be selfless and not thinking about themselves or thinking about something greater. And so keep them in for those reasons. But either way, when you start talking about the kids aspect of things, my thing is that your kid needs to be part of something that goes beyond school. Meaning when the bell rings for school, they're not coming home. They're part of an activity, like you said, whether it's jujitsu, whether it's mixed martial arts, whether it's the debate club, whether it's the band. You need to be a part of something that's outside of school because you need the social circle in the community to build your character, to build who you're going to become. And you know what? You need someone who's going to look at you and be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Like I always say, like I know I came up in the 90s and we used to rank a lot on each other. Dude, hey man, you got the biggest nose. It was just a bunch of, oh man, this boy's shoes is like, we used to just rank on each other about, even if it was like some poverty status class level. Like
your shoes are begging for bread.
We used to just trip on each other like, oh man, my man over here got the biggest lips. Man, you could just catch him in the wind. Like we used to just rank on each other, and it was like, but everybody had something they got faded for. So it wasn't like, oh man, nobody got pouty, because it was like, yes, when you walk into the room, that's what it was going to be. When I got to college, everybody used to be like, man, Ahmard never sits still. Here's a Jamaican coming in the room. He's got the fruit basket. And he's like, it's like they used to be a mockery, but they respected it. But it was a knock. But it was cool. We almost need to get back, like Dave Chappelle said, when we can laugh at stuff. Through the 80s and 90s, and probably before then, everybody laughed at everybody. Gay, straight, black, white, Jew, Christian, it didn't matter. Everybody got smoke.
Yeah.
Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Green Party, everybody got it. Dude, and so we all laugh with one another, because you know what makes stereotypes so awesome? Oh, we don't want to stereotype now. No, let's get back to stereotyping again, because there's about 10 to 20% of it that's true. That's what makes it funny.
Yes.
To just call out people,
It's what made George Carlin and Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor and those guys so funny. Sorry, go ahead.
Costanza, Eddie, like you said, Eddie Murphy. These guys, it was just ranking. Sandy Entertainer, He plays one track, and guys was in another track. It's just like, hey, some are known for this, some are known for that. And there's always a bit of truth in there, which made it funny. But now it's like, oh, we can't talk about those people. We can't talk about those people. The reason why we're so sensitive and want participation trophies, because no one can sit up there and just take an L from one another. We can't talk about each other.
That's so, keep going. We
can't rank.
Mm-hmm.
We can't rank on each other anymore. Oh, well, they're marginalized. What the heck is marginalized anyway? Mm-hmm. We all got flaws, right? We have a stereotype about every race, every religion, every creed, everything. There's something you can rank on everybody. Mm-hmm. Why is everybody not fair game? Why are certain people like, oh, well, you can't talk about them? They're very sensitive about their hair. Oh, well, their class, they're at the bottom of the food chain. It's like, based on what? Like, seriously.
Yeah, says
based
who?
on what?
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Oh, well, those people, they're the ones with all the money. Are they? Because I know some people of that ilk you're talking about who are broke, and some of them are homeless, right? And I know some people over here is like, oh, they can't take tests well. I know some very smart people over there. What are we talking about? Like, when we just take that's why there's so much tension between, all sides. We were talking about the polarity. It's because we can't laugh with each other anymore.
Right.
You can't rank. You can't talk about. There's certain groups you just can't talk about. Why?
Well, here's where I think the enemy is. The enemy is validation, right? When you teach your kids that it's okay to finish second because you're important too, or you teach your kids that this person's, the captain of the basketball team, or this person's parents are rich and this and that. So what happens? You start to despise that because you don't want to be excluded because of that. And then what happens is you fight like hell to be validated. You get caught up in the validation game, and before you can blink, Ahmard, you become what you despise. I was just talking about my trip to California, right? Moving here to California, like people like we don't know who you are, and in my and I started to get defensive. I'm like, F you, I played in Germany. F you, I did this. I did this. I did that. And you know what happens? I'm sitting there rolling off my resume, trying to prove myself, and I go home disgusted with myself because I become what I despise. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I'm just coming up with this now. So for our audience listening, man, we're just trying to answer this. Me and Ahmard, we're just trying to answer this question together. But posing the question itself took a lot of audacity on both of our parts. Um, how much is that you think that's associated to the pressure of the validation game? I would. I mean, can we put a number on that? Can we put a percentage on that? Is it all of that? It's the only thing I can think of right now because I'm a prisoner of the moment, Mr. Vital.
It's a sad state of affairs that everyone feels like not only does everyone get a ribbon, but everybody needs to like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was hearing that the other day about one of the communities. I won't name that because there's so many of them who are just fighting to be in what the victim Olympics. We're ranking hierarchies like, hey, how many boxes do you check off of things that don't work? And it's just like, we're doing this. So
Yeah.
there is this level of validation of where it's like, when did we get into society when everybody has to like you, everybody has to agree with you, right? I could care less if somebody rocks with me or not. I know sometimes my views may not be seen as something somebody likes. Like there's certain parts of our country, of our government that I don't like. Like
Right.
I don't believe you deserve anything. Seriously, I don't believe you deserve anything. Respect, money, healthcare, whatever it is. I think we earn all of this. We go out and we do what needs to be done. Well, what about these folks? What about them? Like, is there something within them that they can't take care of this? Right? Like, when did we get to where it's like, okay, you guys are off limits to not have to put in work? All of you over here put in the work so they cannot have to work. Like, when in human history has that been a thing? Other than what, the last 200 years? Or maybe
Yeah.
even the last 100?
Yeah.
The,
Well,
the, the bottom
there
line
was a
is
time
like,
if you didn't do that, you wouldn't live. So sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. And what's interesting, it's interesting you say that because eventually biology, reality, and these things win every time. They're undefeated, right? The biology between sexes, between race, between all of those things, they always end up winning in the end. I know we're trying to fight against reality and like, hey, everybody's gonna cross the finish line at the same time. Nope, never going to happen. Never going to happen. We're always going to have a class system. Like you were just talking about, the validation. There's always going to be a winner and a loser. There's always going to be rich and poor, right? The poor will always be amongst us. Sorry, that's just the way it is. There's always going to be hierarchies. There's always going to be the privilege, right? And you know what? Shocker. The privilege has nothing to do with your skin color. Let's go ahead and put that out there real quick. Put that on the record. The privilege is on a whole nother level. Okay, and there's privilege across the board.
That
You
goes
go across the pond
right.
to the
That goes
Middle East,
beyond. Yep.
to China, Asia, you'll see privilege over there. You'll see privilege in Germany. You'll see privilege in England, Iceland, America, South America. You can see it everywhere. It has nothing to do with race. Nothing to do with race. So when you're going through this, there's just an idea that work has to be put in at the end of the day. Life is not fair. It never will be fair. It won't be fair in your house. It won't be fair at your job. It has nothing to do with how you dress, what your hair looks like, how much you clip your nails down. Life is just not fair. And I'll even take it one step further. And I'm going to use a word that's a little stronger than I like to use in podcasts. But everyone needs to realize that there's a point of life where life sucks. And what do I mean by that? People, see, what you were talking about earlier, people have this idea, this whole YOLO thing, do what makes you happy. If it don't make you happy, do something else. No, that's not how life works. Sometimes there's a season of life where might be trash. It might be a 10-year stretch where it's just not awesome. You may be having to work that crappy job to fuel your dream. Everything you love is not going to get you paid. Okay?
Yeah.
There's certain things that need to happen for you to go and be able to master the dream you're trying to do. And it may not be happy. We can't all sit around and finger paint all day. okay, and wake up at 12 and drink Starbucks. That's not how it works. Sometimes you got to get in the mud and you have to get dirty. But when society is telling you, if you're not happy, go find what makes you happy. Yes, and be broke.
Yeah.
Because there's things I do throughout my day. I love what I do, but there's some parts of what I do that's not so awesome at all. Having to drive and commute. I don't like doing that every day, but you know what? That's the goat I have to go slay. That's the buffalo I have to drag home.
Mm-hmm.
So happy is not what I shoot for in life anymore. I shoot for fulfillment, meaning that if something is fulfilling, it comes with a cost. There's a trade-off. There's a trade-off to success, and there's a trade-off for poverty. And you know what? I'd much rather come away with scars for success than poverty. So when we get that mindset out of here, and it's going to take some time, that's where the participation trophies come in. That's where everyone gets a pizza party, even though you went 0-12 on the season. Those types of things, all those things are happening right now because daddy and mommy don't want to hurt Junior's feelings. But Junior's feelings need to be hurt. In fact, Junior's feelings need to be trampled on, right? I always share the lesson I got. I was a track runner. My father put me in track when I was 10 years old. And once again, one of those sports where you have to own up to what you are.
There's no bench.
no bench. No bench. I was a pretty good track runner. Came away with medals. I left my high school with 5 school records. But there were some times, coming up, I think I was about 10 or 11 years old. And I guess it just wasn't my day. Maybe everybody in the heat was just that guy and I wasn't. Yeah. I crossed the line 5th place. And I remember, you get medals for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And in summer track, they give you these little goofy ribbons, these little floppy ribbons.
Stop it.
And I think it was like purple, green or something. It was whack. It was lame. So I'm sitting up there holding this ribbon and I'm sick. And I'm just like, I'm going home. I'm in the back seat and I remember my mother was in the passenger seat and she turned around and she wanted to console me. And my dad gave her that look. He gave her that hard stare and said, let him hold all that. And so I'm sitting in the back of the car, upset, crying, sulking, everything. 30-minute drive home. All the feelings, all of them, and so what that does is the development that I learned in the backseat of that car in 30 minutes is more than my parents could have taught me in a month.
It's the only way though that allowed you to come full circle, right? I mean, if you got consoled in this and that, there's really it diminishes the learning lesson of it because and it lessens the chances of you of you valuing conquering that demon. All right, I'll go on a more simplistic level. I'm in Anaheim, right? It's game 3. It's a game to 15. We're up 14-13. I have a middle blocker. I had no one else to serve, right? She's at the service line. She misses. The other team scores 3 times and they win. In the same tournament, 14-13, she's at the service line. She missed. And serve is a controllable in volleyball, right? Ain't nobody can block it. Ain't nobody going to jump in the way. So that's, you know what I'm saying? So it's a thing where I know she feels like absolute crap about it. And when we lost those 2 matches, which knocked us out of the gold bracket and put us in the silver, which we won out. We just won the rest of the games and collected our silver, which to the kids was disappointing because for reasons you know. But I told them, I'm not the coach that's going to tell you don't feel bad. Feel bad because 1, it's how you really feel, and 2, it's no matter what you think right now, it's a very freaking temporary feeling. So you need to find ways to deal with this. Let that simmer, right? Let that marinate, and then know when to hit the reset button. And this is why I brought this whole thing up with youth, because there are certain parents that raise their kids or coaches that coach kids where they're like, they want the kid to express themselves and that's how they learn. And that's important too. But manners, discipline, and all these things can also be taught. So it's really a healthy balance of things. I'm going to shape my question like this because we're staying with juniors for a little bit. Chael Sonnen, MMA fighter, right? A color commentator, once said that they tell you that losing's not an option I think that's absolutely ridiculous. He says losing is an option. Losing is the most readily available option all the time. It's always there when you need it. Again, not Hot 97 rhyme ready. See, he says, so if you're one of these situations where it's you're in a basketball game and it's 70-70 and you're tied, or you're in an MMA match, it's 15 seconds left, you don't know if you're winning or losing. There's two important things he wanted you to remember. One, your opponent's feeling the same thing most likely, right? Because that team, when we were 14-13, let me tell you something. When we were 14-13, that team was crapping their pants. They're like, how are we going to get a side out? We just got blocked. We just got aced. We can't, this team's digging everything. We're hitting at them. And then all of a sudden you serve. I was like, oh, I saw that the sigh of relief. Oh, thank the Lord, right? So one, the other team's feeling it too. And two, stop treating it like it's an unnatural feeling, right? Like you said, losing, you learn more from losing than winning. It is not an unnatural feeling. So for me, and I'd like to give you the floor on this, if you kind of have that kid that has a demon on their shoulder and has these hang-ups and these moments that they think count, we as coaches, we say, hey, let's go, next play. And when the game's over, nah, I'm gonna give you some time to yourself, and you come back at this from a different angle, right? Or you could let negative talk creep up in their head. You know what I'm saying? Which is, you blew it, or this or that. You know what I'm saying? And you can leave them with that, but which is also important too. But to me, it's about this healthy balance that because you have a thought right now, and I'm trying to finish as fast as I can. It's this healthy balance of. And making them understand, but also at the same time, you're not going to learn anything unless I leave kids alone, because when they feel that way, it means that they care about it, right? It means it's important to them. You never seen a kid cry about a loss he ain't care about. That psychologically doesn't exist. It's illogical. So talk to me about the process of having these kids understand about losing, what it feels like to lose, how they come back from it, and just stuff like that. Because I know you had a thought right now, and I was trying to shut up. Go ahead, brother.
No. When you're talking, I'm taking things in, and I'm listening to you, and knowing that, like, this is so important, because we've gotten away from the idea of competition. I mean, for goodness sakes, if you listen to some commentators, they don't even think competition is good. And it's just like, well, that's not what's up. We can't do that. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about kids, like you said, you have to let them feel stuff. And I know we're trying to bubble wrap everyone, feelings and all these things like that. And I was speaking recently on the idea of mental health. And I'm not disregarding that mental health is not real. I mean, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, all those things are obviously on the mental health spectrum. And I know it goes much deeper than that, but I'm just kind of hitting the highlights of what teenagers are dealing with right now, because those numbers, even pre-COVID and post-COVID, are through the roof. And a lot of that is what you talked about, like not letting someone cry it out, right? Sometimes you'll hear people like, that, she has a mental health issue, or she could just be having a bad day. Like, like
it's a real thing.
It's a Jason, you know how it works. I mean,
yeah.
You're a coach, you're a podcaster. Like, sometimes you when you're coaching, some seasons, I'm not talking about a game, I'm talking about some seasons just don't go well. It seems like anything that could go wrong did. And that's life too, where it's like, maybe there's a 3-month period at the job where things just aren't working. You're just like, man, every day seems like it's just the whole weight of the world is on me. It's not working out. I had one of those, coming out of last year, in the middle of, coming out of Thanksgiving into Christmas. It's like housing market was going crazy. And it's like, we're still doing our thing. Homes aren't moving like they need to be. And it's just like, man, like, is there ever a day where, like, it's not 90 things to do? Like, is there ever a day where I can just sort of kick back and, take the foot off the gas a little bit? Or do I need to redline this thing every day for 4 months? Life comes in seasons, and sometimes a season is very rough for you, right? Seed time and harvest time. Let's go back to nature, right? And so when kids are dealing with this, like, let them crash. Let them crash, right? I'm not saying you don't still Like, I don't want you to get to the point where you're just allowing them to just let their thoughts just go completely haywire, but let them feel what a loss, what disappointment feels like.
Right.
Right. And, the way my father used to break it down to me is there's upset and there's disappointed.
Right.
You want your dad upset with you because that's fleeting. Like, I'm mad at you for this. Disappointment hurts their soul.
Yes.
Right. And so you want to get to the point where it's just like they know the feeling of disappointing not only themselves, but the family, the team, the school, the community. Young man gets kicked off the team. Young lady gets flunks out and can't make the team. You've disappointed many people. You need to feel what that feels like so that you know that you have the idea to, like, hey, when I was a sophomore, I flunked out and I couldn't play sports anymore. I let the whole team down. I let the school down. I let the community down. And worst of all, I let my family down. They need to feel what that feels like so that when now it's time to go back into the lab and recreate and say, you know what? I know what that feels like. And how about I put in the work for that not to happen? Not to say it won't, but you'll be able to deal with it a whole lot better now that you know it's like, okay, I see where I made some mistakes and you can correct those now. And we have to get back to the point where we're keeping people from, and I think that's where a lot of even the political jargon is right now. We're trying to prevent people from failing, and you can't.
No.
You can't prevent people from squandering their mortgage payments at the craps table, right? You can't prevent people from making mistakes. It's part of it. We need to prevent people from, breaking into people, doing crimes and different things. Like, you don't prevent that. You just have the awareness and you put yourself in the best possible position. But evil and bad things and adversity and struggles and stress and depression, all of these things are going to continue to happen. You can't work them out of society. They're part of the full mosaic of our lives.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about mental health, it's like, let them understand, like, if they need some time on someone's couch, let's work that out. But sometimes maybe just let them experience loss. Experience it. When you try to take that off the table, just like if you try to cut the caterpillar out of that cocoon, when it's trying to become a butterfly, it dies. Because the pain it takes to come out of the cocoon is the strength it needs to be able for the wings to be able to fly.
Yes.
That's life.
Oh, but
you can't take these things away from people and think that there's not going to be some downstream effects. That's why you have 30-year-olds saying, I'm just going to quit my job because I'm not happy. Are you getting paid? Are you providing a service? Go do it. You have mobility to go wherever you want, but know that it comes with a trade-off.
Yes.
There's a cost. People don't want to pay that fare. They don't want to pay the fee for success or whatever comes with it. If you want something, it is going to come with a cost. If you want to start a family, it comes at a cost. You want to start a business, it comes with a cost. Writing a book, making the varsity team. All of these are costs, but we're trying to take the cost off the table and we just want the prize and we're ill prepared for all of it.
And I was just, and that was going to bring me to the broader point as my little by the way moment, that's connected to your fulfillment versus happiness thing. That same girl who missed the serves, and it's crazy because I love talking about juniors on this because juniors it's more animated and it means more to me because I coach pros, in the AVP, and I also coach NCAA for 12 years. At the Division 1, 2, and 3 level, LMU and Baruch College in New York. Don't know who George Santos was, by the way. Yeah, never heard of that guy. I was at Baruch, but that girl who missed the serves in Anaheim, we're in Vegas, 14-13. She serves an ace. And we have a fast turnaround. So there's another match. So while I'm talking to the team, I look in the corner of my eye, and she's tall enough. She's a tall middle, so she's standing above the crowd, and I could see this. I could see her eyes like this, and I looked at her, and I was like, I know how you feel right now. I know there's this fulfillment of how you've come full circle, and this moment where you thought history could repeat itself, but something else can happen. And I'm like, congratulations, because now you know how it feels like to lose, and you were hurt, and it was grief stricken because again, it generates from caring, but
Mm-hmm.
now today it went the other way. Now it went the other way. And doesn't it feel more rewarding? Doesn't it feel more fulfilling to know what it feels like to lose and at the same time come back? And when it counts, it was a match to get into gold, to get into the gold bracket, which by the way is rare because for 14s, when you have a big club and then you have like 10 teams of 14 and you have multiple teams go, you kind of get it. We only have two 14s teams and they both qualify for gold. So it was, and it was all decided in game 3 because they're up to 25, but game 3 is up to 15, 14, 13. I was like, do I put someone in a serve for her? But I said, well, my luck, I'll put someone in a serve for her and that person will miss. And then we learn nothing, right? And then, you know what I'm saying? As a motivational speaker and a coach and an athlete, you get what I'm saying. Like if I put someone in, she misses, there's nothing learned on this. Or she can miss a third time and now we got a problem. Or she can serve in and we'll win the rally. Or even better, she gets an ace. Ace.
True.
It hit the top of the tape at a spot where nobody could play. And it was like the Kawhi Leonard shot. It hit the tape, bounced up, landed on the tape, stayed on the top of the tape, and all everybody can do was watch to see which side it fell on. It fell on their side, ace. It was just, and it was, and as a coach, remember like Kawhi, he's in the corner, and this emotionless guy, you're like, yeah, I got you. The robot feels. I knew you felt something. You could be all robotic if you want, but in that moment, the robot feels. And let me tell you something. I'm a theater performer. I don't hide the way I feel, man. That was great. But I knew you'd appreciate the moment we were in the huddle. And we didn't need to talk about it. I just saw her and she saw me and there was a whole conversation there. And that was the broader point I was trying to get to. She doesn't get there and she doesn't feel the way she feels without disappointment. She doesn't feel the way she feels where she's like, how do I go about this next time and the time after that and the time after that? And that's a valuable lesson. And again, as coaches, I hate and this I'm gonna definitely give you the floor. I hate when people sweep everything under the band of negative talk, right? Like she can miss a serve and I could be like, I hope you're happy. And that's not the same category as I know how you feel right now, but you need to cowboy the F up because we have another match. So take your moment because I need you, right? So we got a culture out there that considers both of those things the same category of negative talk. And I know and you know damn well that's not the same thing, bruh. That's not the same thing.
No. I mean,
He's like so much to unpack.
because see, even the nonverbals. I work with a lot of teenage guys down here, and we'll be in service or something, and I'll see them over there doing something, and I'll just give them the look, and they know what that look means. They know that when we come out, when it's back to like talking again, they know I'm going to go and check them and be like, why were you being disrespectful while a speaker was speaking? Like my guys don't get a pass at all. Why? Because I want them to be warriors. Why? Because the world is going to beat them up when they get out there. I don't care. Once again, you're the male species. You finna go out there and fight battles, right? And I know they're trying to take that off the table as well. Keep your toxicity over there, but whatever. That's a whole nother podcast for another day. But the bottom line is like there has to be some accountability. There has to be. Here's the expectations. You know what I expect from you, right? And here's the deal. Obviously, I raised the bar very high for my young men, extremely high, right? If you're 13, I'm training you on a 16. 16, I'm training you like you're 20.
Bam.
20, I'm training you like you're 25, right? And it's like, well, let kids be kids. I know kids are going to be kids. But you know what? I always tell them, I cannot keep you from doing dumb stuff in the streets because you're a teenager and I've been one. You're going to go do something dumb in the streets. In fact, multiple times. And I know this. But what I like to do is I like to impart into them and I like to pour into them. And I say, you know what all I really want from you? Because I'm not going to stop it. What I want from you is what I call the pause. Before you get in that car and go to that place with that particular person, you don't need to go there. All I want is the pause. Before you go in there and buy something that you know is going to be harmful for your body, I want you to pause. Before you are about to speak to a teacher, an adult, or someone in a certain type of way, I want you to pause. Because if I can get you to pause, I might get you to snap and think, what would my parents think? What would Mr. Vital say? What would the elders of my church say? What would the authority figure say? What would my coach say before I'm about to say, do, or make this action? What do the adults in my life, the people who love and care for me and want to see me win, what would they think about me in this moment? And if I can get you to just be like, you know what? Hey, you guys go ahead. I'm good. I won't win all of those, but I want to win enough of them to where we're not at a funeral. We're not in a courthouse. We're not in the hospital because something you've done has caused you damage.
No
I
doubt.
just want the pause. So I put the expectations out there that are a little extended because I want your mind to expand. I want you to kind of have a little bit of a headache on the right side and be like, man, it's a little bit of a system overload. I know.
There's a reason for that.
And there's a reason for this. Because I love you so much that I want you to be prepared even in your failures.
Right.
I want you to be prepared for this thing called life. Because no one, and I mean no one, is coming to save you.
No doubt.
I love you and I want to see you do well. And I want you to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, clean your wounds off, and go back out and fight again. Right? But I want you to be in a position to where you know the expectations of those who love you around you. And when you can get to that point, I feel like when they can get to that state of mind, then we have a better chance of success. We have a better chance of bringing our young people to a place where that bridge they're walking across to the next level is a sturdy one and not full of holes and bad nails and broken planks.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of my mission when it comes to these types of things, is to put them in the best position to win, to put them in a position to where they can win at a greater clip than I am doing and I did at that age. Most of my teenagers I deal with are light years ahead of where I was when I was that age.
Yep.
And I love it. And I lean in on that even more. When I see that they're getting something that I had when I was 27 and they're 16, oh, we're doubling down. Like, hey, can I introduce this to you? Right?
Yeah.
I put a lot of leaning on my young men, a lot. And that's by design.
Mhm.
Of course I want to. Because I want you to have a little bit, I want you to have something you're striving for that seems unattainable all the time. So you have something to go for. Not these little loose. I mean, I understand you want to put some goals together so they can get some wins along the way, but you also want them reaching for something that seems almost impossible.
No doubt.
And then they stretch towards it.
No
You
doubt.
know?
Actually,
It's almost like, what if your goal was $10 million, right?
Mhm.
And you're striving, and you land at 7.5. Are you gonna be like, dang, well, it ain't 10?
Yeah.
You're a millionaire, right? You reach somewhere that was very high. You didn't quite reach that benchmark, and you can keep working towards it. But you're not gonna sit at 7.5 and be like depressed.
No.
Right?
No.
And that's my point. Like
That's
you
a
were saying,
and that's a good point.
Your young lady, got you into the gold round. That doesn't mean you're going to get the gold, but we
No.
got a shot,
That was great.
right? We're in position to
Yeah.
do this.
And this is it's the developmental team. It wasn't even like we have two 14s. One's a team that we expect to win the national championship. You got one of the best setters in the country, and there's a second team because LA Volleyball Club is a competition club. So Jason Olive, program director, you guys are so much alike. You could be long lost brothers for Christ's sakes. But we don't accept losses because it's a developmental team. No, in tournaments, the objective is to win. All that time in practice, we're figuring stuff out in the process. By the way, I have the clip. Watch this. Ready? Here's the clip. Here's the serve. Sorry.
Tip, drop.
Yeah, it's the fate of the game decided on where that ball was going to go, how that ball was it going to hit the tape and bounce back on our side? Was it going to go over? Because, look, I'm back from the old school. If you served in the net, it was a violation.
Yeah.
But the new rules, it's allowed to hit the tape and go over,
Yes.
Yeah, like tennis too.
I
Like
remember the days when it skimmed it.
No, it was a dead ball. Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, it was a dead ball. I'd like to summarize what you said into this beautiful quote that I'm hoping our audience can take with us. Greatness is man's failed attempt in his pursuit of perfection. That's what I thought you were saying. I'll say it again. Greatness is achieved when man fails at perfection. You want 10 million? Wound up with 7.5. Okay, you don't consider that a win. Fine. Tell that to that guy next to you. Yeah.
That's a great quote. And I'll
Yeah.
probably have you send that to me later.
Yeah. That's
That's
a
a
me
great
that's a
quote.
me quote. I just came up with it now.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
Greatness
But
is man's
it's
failure
deep.
in his
It,
achievement in pursuit of perfection, or something like that. You could shape it, and we can call it our own. How about that?
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, you
That's
got a lot
that's
of Dave Goggins in you too, man. When you're on the whatever talking about nobody cares, whatever, and just get up, 5 o'clock in the morning, you a 3.9. How come you ain't a 4.0? I'm like, yo, I'm talking to Dave Goggins here.
because like nobody waking up thinking about
Yeah.
you like that.
No.
You think you're so doggone important, and you're
Yeah.
just not in
But
that sense,
but you also have
right?
to appreciate where that guy came from too, right?
Yes. Oh
The
yeah.
man was part of CRC Academy. Like, I'm ex-military, right? I'm Army, and
Okay.
I supported MI. I was a generator mechanic supporting MI. My father before me, they're almost all four branches except the Marines. But this guy, Navy SEALs, is just to give people an appreciation. It is the single most difficult training to survive. Not excel, but survive in the Spec Ops community, and it's open to all four branches: Army Delta, Marine Reconnaissance, Recon, Navy Intel, and you get through that. David Goggins, man. You got
Yeah.
a lot of him in you. What you?
My mentor
Sorry.
put me on him
Yeah.
some time ago. I remember when he first showed it to me, because
Mm-hmm.
I remember I found out about him
Mm-hmm.
and CT Fletcher within months, and I was just like, oh, okay, like
That's like
let's
a
just
drug
double this.
overdose.
Let's double this. I'm like, whoa. So and I mean, I'm an ex football player, man, and obviously, with me working in the ministry and things
Mm.
of that nature, I don't typically, put profane stuff out
No,
on
of course
Instagram,
not.
because I do
Yeah.
have a lot of youngsters. I mean, I got 8-year-olds probably through their parents probably watching some of my things, so I do like to be respectful of all of
Yeah.
those platforms or
Well, my
whatever. But
kids
at
are
the
going to be
same time,
watching this. I usually
I
have a kids ask your parents first, but this one, thank you for being on. It's a podcast. I mean, it's neat and clean for Eugene, but finish what you were saying. Sorry.
well, I mean, it's just when you go into certain areas of life, and you're pushing through and doing certain things, you just have to be mindful of what's going on. And not that, I mean, I've had my moments. It took me almost 7 years to get out of college, and that wasn't to get multiple degrees. So you can do the math on how that worked out. um but it's just over time I've been groomed, and I've asked God to, like, hey, what do you want me to become, to where I am a representative for the young men who follow me. Like, I was sharing with my brother the other day. I was like, there's a lot of things that I just don't do that I did 10 years ago anymore, right? Because if if what I'm doing right here, if one of my teams are like, hey, you know, we found out Mr. Vital is doing this, or something along those lines, it's like, am I letting them down? Am I letting, members of my community down by doing certain things? And so there's certain moves I just don't make anymore.
Right.
There's certain podcasts I won't jump on. If you're too far doing certain things and your value place, and I can read through your bio of what you're about, I'm just like,
Mm.
bless you, do you?
Right.
Because there's a certain level that I've grown into now, and I feel like there's an accountability I have to them, even as an adult,
Right.
right? I mean, I got 5-year-olds I teach, through the Boys and Girls Club, right? They're tykes, and they there's a reverence when I walk into the room with them, um, as their teacher for the summer programs, and over time, I just started developing a new awareness to where I was just like, yeah, man, like, you really gonna have to give some of the stuff up you used to do when you were younger. Like, that stuff is over. And so now I'm kind of coming to that, shedding off, the old skin, still up to this point. but there is a lot of moves I just don't make anymore because I it's important to me to be as best of an example as I can for them. I still make mistakes, I still slip up or whatever, but I do keep them in mind when I'm making moves in my regular personal life.
Yeah, that's why,
To
dude. That's why you inspire me. Me, I'm just trying to make sure that they're good volleyball players, and I make sure that they see my flaws and understand my flaws, and say that those count too, right? Like,
well, you're a
I
teacher.
remember. I'm not a teacher. No way. Well, I'm a teacher metaphorically speaking, but there's no way.
Yeah, that's
I
what
mean,
that's yeah.
dude.
I'm
I
not talking
mean,
about. I'm not talking about
yeah,
public school
I'd be
system
on the
teaching.
news if I was a
No, I'm
teacher.
talking
If
about
one of these kids came at me like that, I'd be on the news, man. You would have saw me on
you're a
the
leader of
news.
athletes.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
you're a minister in your own right.
yeah.
That's what you are.
And I think we have to understand that, like you said, there has to be a virtue where you look at the kid and the kid looks at you and says, "Good enough." Like a lot of my friends are like, "Oh, why are you doing that? Do you want your kid to do that?" And I'm like, "It's not a do as I say and say as I do thing, even though that's also that. But there's a lot of things." I do that I definitely don't want. I would never want my kid to do. For example, I don't want my kid joining the military. Okay, that's a me thing. That's what I did. I don't want my kid to study theater. Right, my BFA is in acting. It's one of the most useless degrees ever. Even though I had a great time, doing shows. Right, on Broadway, off Broadway. So and the cool thing is when you graduate, you have to hit the ground running because if you take time off, you can't get back in. So, and then like you said in some of your previous podcasts, it's a useless degree. I certainly don't want my kid coaching volleyball. There's just no real monetary gain, and there's a self satisfaction that me as an individual embraces that I don't want my kid doing. So I just tell myself I'm really, 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 really careful as far as like being an example or being a role model for some of my kids. I don't want my kid drinking vodka. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, there's a long list of things that I do that I wouldn't want my kid or want any of the kids to do. But what I will do is make sure that they have respect for each other. Make sure that they show up on time because because the people that came on time, they found their way to get there on time. That person that was talking while other people were talking, I don't. We do suicides for days if that happens in my gym. And when I'm done with that, with the suicides, I will ask them the question. I said, when you have something to say, do you see me talking to somebody else or am I listening to you? Someone that you don't even think owes you that. I'm the coach. There's a ranking file here, honey. Okay. So you put that in perspective when you're talking, don't you want me to pay attention to you? Or have you ever historically seen me talking to someone else in the middle of your sentence while you're talking? No, because there's a respect there. So don't you think I'm entitled to that respect? So you bring it to a logical end, but you gotta tax them some. You gotta tax them some. I'm not a punishment coach, but it doesn't mean I won't do it just because I don't like it. I'm not. But you mentioned, I love that you mentioned that. Like this kid's like, are you seriously talking and doing your own thing while this dude's doing a speech? That's disrespectful. And as long as you have that general blanket of discipline and respect for other people, I think there's some role models. There's you that's 2 levels above me as far as being a role model. And then there's people that are like, all right, good enough. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Would you study at Stephen S. Austin?
Journalism. I'm a journalism major. I've been in media my whole life. And
That's
I've
useful.
obviously,
He studied something useful.
hey man, what's crazy is, I mean, I was probably like one of the last classes where you like maybe needed to. Now for film, maybe you probably still need to get a degree there, but like in writing with all the blogs and so much with the internet, I came in during newspapers, where they ran on the press. They're cranking that thing out. I mean, I'm old enough to remember cut and paste newspapers, right? I graduated in '97. We were one of 9 high schools with a digital newspaper where we laid it out on what was called Adobe PageMaker back in the day. And we were one
What?
of 9 high schools in the whole state of Texas that had a digital newspaper where you're like
Probably one of
laying out copy. And it was, man, it was so it
that
was
was
groundbreaking then.
rad,
It was,
dude.
it was
That is
groundbreaking.
rad. I'm gonna sound like a California. That was rad, man.
It was groundbreaking. But that's how we came up. Where you went and shot the photos black and white, went in there at the film, put it in the film room, pulling out the thing and saying, all right, now I need this picture this size so we can paste it into this spot. So we need to make sure the photo is this big. All of those things, man. You know, I jokingly say when I was I think 7th or 8th grade,
Mhm.
my family got one of the first cordless phones
Mhm.
on the block. You know, caller ID. We were one of the first people with caller ID. That would have been
Nice.
probably 91.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, like I'm old enough to remember when caller ID was a thing where you just didn't know when somebody called, back when
Wow.
you knew, like, heck, I was at Stephen F. Austin in spring of 98. I knew 3 people with a cell phone. 3.
Yep.
That's it. Well, because cell phones didn't work in Nacogdoches, Texas. We're talking about way in East Texas. It's like,
Yeah.
you're talking about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Houston. And so cell service, there's no towers out
No.
there.
It was a
Remember the
waste
old
of money
Verizon
and
commercials?
time. You couldn't even get a call. Yeah.
You remember Verizon? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You remember when that was real? When people who had Verizon phones, you could not get a call with them?
No. It
Yes.
was like up.
So
It was like up.
it,
It's like, what'd you say? I
yes,
said
I was dating a young lady in college, and this would have been like probably, oh man, this must have been like sophomore year or something like that. And I remember she had a Verizon or T-Mobile. I think it was Verizon. She had a Verizon phone, and I remember when I used to call her, I was like, I got to get everything out I need in 30 seconds because the call was going to drop. It was like, hey, so meet me at the library at this time. I'm going to do this. All right, we're good. Bye. Because the call's going to drop after that. That's how I used to work. So
It's
good
like, dude,
times,
it
man.
serves a
Good times.
purpose. It is good times, and for you, it was great times because you were almost a near decade ahead of what people thought was basic fundamental technology. Tell me a little bit about your book. First of all, sorry I scheduled this late. I thought it was supposed in my mind, I knew Central Time was 8 or whatever, and I'm like, I know you was thinking this dude's a dork, but I'm gonna accommodate him. So I appreciate you making this later for me, which is why I want to talk about your book. I want to do the lightning rounds, and then we can wrap up. But um, tell me about your book that came out in 2019. It's I'm more than enough. I know
Yes,
you
sir.
authored more than one book, but I wanted to concentrate on you. Leave enough time to talk about, just what that meant to you and what the book was. What the book is, synopsisly, whatever. Mhm.
I do find it fascinating when I'm going on these shows,
Mhm.
what book resonates with people.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously I have 3 of them, and you're probably the second person in about 3 weeks who's like, let's talk about I am more than enough. 3 ways to overcome the fear of your own reflection. Um, that book was based on, all my books were based on tragedy, unfortunately, which is a good thing. It really was. It was built on the idea of what Awaken the Baller Within when it came out when my father died after my 33rd birthday, and so there was obviously a lot that went along with that, a lot of emotions. It was unexpected. My father died of COPD, which at that time I didn't even know what that was. I don't think there was any treatments or hardly anything for it. Um, which now, when I look back at it, I was like, you know what? Maybe my father was part of, the research needed to be able to create the drugs I see on television now for people with COPD. So, I definitely get a good feeling out of that to know my father might have been part of that. Um, it's just his death taught me so much about manhood, life, ethics, and you know, faith in God all around. And so I'm more than enough focuses on 3 key points. One, waking up, looking in the mirror, and owning everything. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. Like the good, the bad, the ugly, the pile of dirt in your living room, the dirty clothes in the bedroom, all of that stuff. The fire burning in the front yard, all of that stuff. And a lot of people say, well, what about the young man or young lady who came up in a house and it's not their fault? I'm like, yeah, maybe your mom was on crack and your dad's in jail. It's not your fault, but it's your problem.
Yeah.
You have to deal with it.
Yep. It's
You
like,
have to
what do
deal
we
with
do
it. It's
now?
it's,
Yep.
it's unfortunate, but you can't avoid it. And so here we are. So it's like, how do you deal with that? And so we look at the idea of when you look in the mirror, you own all of it. You and your parents' situation, your upbringing, your financial situation, all that. Deal with all that junk and just lay it all out and have a program I call kind of what's good here. Uh, where I allow someone to have a full pity party. You know, get one of those old school pads. I got one here sitting next to me. I keep these handy. Get you one of these big boys right here, the old school ones, the ones that they, you know, go to Office Depot and go to the back, go to that section over there and get
Yes.
the long legal ones,
Get one of the last
right?
two.
And I want you to draw a line down the middle, and I want you to put good and bad. And I don't really like the good and bad labels, but for this it works. And I want you to write down on the left side everywhere where your life is terrible. And I mean all of it, or where you perceive your life is terrible. I'm talking like your kids don't like you, you know, your boss is mad, you know, you got a strained relationship with your mother. Like, I want it all. I want the full pity party to go down with that. And then you write all of that stuff down, and then you sit and you get it away from you. Preferably for at least a day. Some people I say, you know, some hours, but really a day, to where you go on about your day. And then I want you to come back to that list, and I want you to pray, sit still, whatever your practice is. I would suggest prayer or meditation over the list, and just, you know, to give you a sense of peace.
Right.
And on the other side, I want you to write down what's good here, meaning that thing that you think is so terrible. I want you to write down why that was the greatest blessing in your life. And I want you to think really hard about it. Like, why did my father die on the night after my third birthday? Why was that the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me? And I might write a whole book about that one day. But there was a lot of benefits that came from that. You know, you have an issue. Let's just say you have a strained relationship with your child. What's good here? The good thing is like, now I know where the floor is. So now I can sit down with a counselor. I can sit down with him. I can sit down with his teachers. I can sit down with a pastor. I can sit down with someone to say, hey, you know, what do I need to do to patch this relationship up? You know, is there some time maybe I'm missing out with him? Is there some time? Is there something she's needing from me that I'm not providing? You know, it's an awareness, right? And you do this with all these different things, because one or two things is going to happen. Either you're going to look on the other side and realize how that was a great moment for you in your life, or you're going to be wondering like, I don't even talk to this person anymore. Why did they even make the list? And so now you get to mentally scratch them off that list and say, you know what? I release you right now. I release you from my everyday psyche. I release you from the whole rent free. I release you now. I bless you. I love you. I forgive you. Now we're gone, right? And so we go through that whole list. So either it doesn't need to be there, or you see the blessing in it. And that's one of the main things that came out of that book. You know, talking about the image. You know, accepting where you are, accepting the dirt that you created. Because most of the stuff we're dealing with, when people talk about, you need to pay me back for something that did or did not happen to you, most of the wounds we deal with are self-inflicted, right? All the entitlement programs are pretty much self-inflicted. Most people weren't born into like, I'm just the worst impoverished person ever, because we've seen so many examples of people who were born into poverty and come out to become not only millionaires, but multimillionaires and leading multiple companies. So it can be done. It's just some of you choose not to. And we don't want to have that conversation. And that's another one for another day. And then, of course, the last one is mindful changes. If you don't change, the game is going to stay the same. If you don't practice, if you don't, train, if you don't change your mindset, well, you're going to end up with the same things, right? People are like, I ain't gotten a raise. I haven't gotten a raise in 7 years. Shocker. Maybe you suck at your job. Or maybe you're at the wrong job. Because
maybe you're at a job they don't give that kind of raise.
There's no way you can be at a job for 7 years and there's no advancement. Mm-hmm. And you're excelling. That's literally impossible. Right. Either that's the worst company of all time, mm-hmm. or you're the worst employee. And I'm going to go probably more with the latter. Yeah. You've not found the upward mobility. And it's like, well, McDonald's doesn't pay enough. McDonald's is not supposed to pay enough. It's McDonald's, right? It's meant for you to go there, get the skills you need, either level up within the organization or move on to the next spot.
Right.
But see, that moving on, you want to be able to stay there and get CEO money at McDonald's. And that's not how the game works.
Yeah.
And so that I Am More Than Enough focuses on a lot of those little things like that. And really just getting people out of this whole mindset again, that you're owed something. Like, I can't stand entitlement. Entitlement is one of the most disgusting, disrespectful things that is part of our society. Delayed gratification needs to be implemented. We need a course. You know what? Grade school, delayed gratification as a course. I'll head it up. Who wants to come with me? Mm-hmm. A delayed gratification course.
Right.
We need to bring that back. Just like we need to bring back shame. We need to bring back accountability. We need to bring back gratitude. All of these different qualities that are just getting worked out of society because, oh, that person feels bad. So
Right. I think,
there's mornings you wake up
right.
and you don't feel so awesome, but you still got to go out and do your thing.
Amen. Yep. Yeah, here,
Yeah.
here. I remember Joe Rogan said it best. You have a finite amount of time on this earth, right? Because I remember you talking about your dad. But he said you have a finite amount of time on this earth. It could be a good time or it can suck. And if it sucks, you need to fight like hell to change it as if your life depends on it because it really
True.
does. Because it really does. It's one of my favorite quotes.
Mhm.
And you hit the nail on the head. I'm not a huge fan of entitlements, but I am a fan of at least someone recognizing someone's hard work and giving them an opportunity instead of like good old boys clubbing it, right? Kevin Spacey said, if I make it to the penthouse, I push lobby and send the elevator back down, right? Not because you're trying to give everybody a free elevator ride up, but just a chance that someone can get into an elevator where it's not just the ground floor, an elevator that doesn't work. And like you said, there are people in those situations. And the third part of your dichotomy was maybe they're in a small office where there is no room for promotion, which is something like you said they have to recognize and accept sooner than later. And I really, man, did you put that really well. I'm really good at these short sentences, but you shaped it fantastically, and I'm looking forward to actually. I read inserts. I'm looking forward to reading this whole darn thing. All right. Hey, lightning rounds. I'm putting up our 1 minute clock. And these are
Oh,
quick questions. Let me
is there a car at the end of this? Because I feel like this is the way this works.
mhm.
Whether it's Jeopardy, a Wheel of Fortune, like I'm going to need a payout at the end of this. So
Well, like
don't.
Spider-Man, action and hitting is your reward.
True that. True that.
Spider-Man does whatever a
Hey, that's
spider
my
can.
hey. If my office the way it used to be, Spider-Man used to be right here. I
Yeah.
have a Spider-Man poster right over there that has character at the bottom of it.
And I'm a Captain America guy.
Oh,
This is my mighty shield. It's
I
actually
can deal.
heavier than you think too.
I can
It's
deal.
like
I can deal with the Cap. He's the emotion. He's the emotional
yeah.
leader of the Avengers. I can rock with that.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
That's me, the kid from Brooklyn that joined the military that runs towards the problem.
You are Captain America.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, I don't run away
Okay.
from a problem. I run towards it. So in that respect, I'm one of many Captain Americas. I run towards the problem.
Can you do this all day?
I'm that guy. Yes. Don't you love that part when he's like, I could do this all day,
I can do
and
this all.
he goes, I know. Remember when he had to fight and fight? He's like, yeah, I know.
I know the line. Yes.
All right, so ready? Starting the 57 countdown clock. Let me get my horn at the end, and here we go. Favorite comedian?
Ooh,
First one that came to your
Eddie
mind.
Murphy.
There you go. Oh, nice. Last good book you read?
Think and Grow Rich.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Pool or beach?
Beach.
Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Ooh, Lord of the Rings.
Ooh, bourbon, vodka, or tequila? Maybe none of the above, depending on
Vodka.
me. That's me too. Favorite sport outside of no, favorite spectator sport. Sorry.
Football probably there.
Favorite action film star growing up?
Harrison Ford.
My man. Favorite morning sports talk show?
Ooh,
If that's your thing, might be no
pass.
one. Yeah, I'll pass. I love me some Shannon Sharp. Any fun conspiracy rabbit holes? For example, mine is the JFK assassination. Like I don't think that guy can make the shot.
uh, only cause I have a family member who's caught up in this. The moon landing.
There you go. There we go. I gotcha. Hey, is there so let's plug in your IG or website where people want to know more of what you've been up to. Let's definitely plug the book. And before we get out of here, I want to make sure that everybody knows that so they can find out more about Ahmard Vital.
AhmardVital.com is the hub for everything. You can check out my books there, check out my merch there. Contact me, book me to come to your school, nonprofit, or your business. Um, Definitely all those. IG is Ahmard Vital everywhere. There's no alias. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram,
It's rather
same
unique.
thing.
It's rather
Same,
unique.
it's just if you spell my name right, I'm popping up. So
Yeah.
by all means, reach out to me. And for all and obviously they can go to if they want to get a preview of the newest book, Now What, they can go to booknowwhat.com. My publisher has made that available to the audience to check out as a preview copy. Love for you to go out and buy it as well if you can, but you can at least get a preview copy of the book. And for your audience, I'd like to be able to make an offer to them. If you have young people who are in your life right now and they're struggling, maybe trying to see what their next step is going to be, battling with, whether you want to call them demons or just a lot of rough thoughts, and they're just having a rough season or whatever. If you go to my website or go to info@ahmardvital.com and put the option podcast, we'll set it up for you to maybe get a 30-minute discovery call with your young person, and we can get something set up to where even if you don't need the full coaching, at least we can get you a start to maybe just clean up the mess. A starting of clean up the mess, give you a couple of pointers to be able to point you in the right way. Our goal is to build that bridge to the future generations, to build a sturdy bridge to them. And so if that 30-minute call, if I have to do 10,000 of those over the span of whatever time, then let's do it. I can do this all day. I'd like to be able to provide that for your people because our young people are that important to me, and I want to be able to be part of the solution to a lot of the issues going on in today's society.
Well said, my man. So, for everybody out there, Ahmard Vital might love you, but for me, you know what? No, today I love you guys too. He just put me in him. I can't say I can't stand you today. I love you guys too. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPads and iPhones, for all of you on your desktop, who runs the world? Old school, baby. Old school. For my man Ahmard Vital, I'm Jason DeBase. This is episode 174 of the Option Podcast. Stay with me. I'm going to hit my music. But for now, we are out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.